all the elections and he thinks he will win the next one, and perhaps he does not care whatever you do after he leaves office. And of course, at times we think of retiring from politics, but if this is the kind of team that we're going to have as MPs, we might rethink our position again.
And you're just in time for Business Glide, your go-to point on matters public policy analysis, business and economics at large. Hosted by yours truly, Richard Mwenja, the year of our Lord 2024. We are so privileged to still have you on board. And today we are discussing about the finance bill of 2024. Of course, that's the bone of contention right now in the air. We want to unpack some of the hits and misses contained in the bill. But first things first, allow me to introduce the analyst for the day. It is none other than this renowned think tank. The first of his name, former cabinet minister Ruto Arab Kiro. And today we're coming to you straight from his palatial home here in Karen. You have a really a good house here, sir.
Well, I thank God for it, but it's not as palatial as indicated in your statement. Is what I was able to build about 25 years ago.
25 years ago?
Yes, when I was much younger than I am today.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Asante sana. Welcome to the show. It's been a while. The entire week you haven't seen you on our screens.
Yeah. I was up and about trying to do one or two things to fix what is fixable within these tough times of the economic situation. But here we are. We thank God the rains have subsided and fatalities have reduced. We just do hope that in future we shall be cognizant of some of these challenges, especially in terms of environmental conservation. Because I strongly believe that why the rains have ravaged us more than they did in 1961 is because we have decimated the trees that used to cover. And we have also destroyed a number of catchment areas and waterways in such a way that water flows so fast. And the torrents is what causes landslide, causes some of the rivers bursting their banks and destroying homes and crops.
Very well.
Yeah.
I was afraid that maybe you've taken cue from Kibaki Jr. And I'm talking about Jimmy Kibaki, who has decided to retire from active politics after 33 years. So now that we had not met until today, I was afraid maybe you've retired from politics as well.
Yeah, for avoidance of doubt, let me make it clear. As long as a man still moves on his feet, even if he's on a wheelchair and he's still alive, he's a political animal. That is what distinguishes the rest of us from the other animals in the wild or even domesticated animals. Because politics is part and parcel of somebody's life, and you cannot convince me that I've retired from politics. You can take sabbatical leave, you can take a bit of haters in terms of being not in active politics, but politics is that part and parcel of life. So as long as I'm still occupying this space and I'm breathing the free air that you are getting, I will still be in politics. I may not be in active or elective politics, but I cannot say I've retired. When the day you come to Kitale for my funeral, that's when you say this guy has left us. Otherwise, I'm around.
Do you then welcome the move from Jimmy Kibaki to retire from what he terms active politics that spanned 33 years? What do you make of that?
Well, I didn't meet Jimmy in politics as such, apart from the fact that I worked with his father. So I don't know what was active politics. Possibly he was assisting his father. And I don't know, 33 years from when? Well, I have to work backwards. Otherwise, well, I wish him well. Because really, you don't retire from politics. You don't run away from being responsible in society. Because you see, the clear definition of politics is being part and parcel of societal challenges and trying to resolve them. That is politics for me.
He has now elected farming as his vehicle of choice in his retirement.
Yeah, okay. But he should also have CSR so that you give back to society Because even like whatever we discuss all the time, I don't consider it being in active politics, but I'm giving back to society what I can afford to give within my measures.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that of the way, and let's get straight to the day's conversation about the Finance Bill of 2024. And let's begin with the recent development, which is, even despite outrage from tax experts over the Finance Bill of 2024, while President Ruto was in Rwanda speaking at the African CEO Forum, he was asked, or rather questioned, about Kenya Kwanza's approach towards taxation, and his response was that a serious government has to choose between doing the right thing and being popular. And he said that he had chosen the former, which is going the taxation way in realizing Kenya's development goals. So how do you make of that statement coming from President Ruto, that he's not about being a popular person to please the masses, but doing the right thing, which in this case is doing taxes and even more taxes?
Well, one thing, it will come to catch up with him, because I know if there's a person who grates for popularity is William Ruto. I've told you, when they go to a function like a cabinet meeting, is the one who starts with prayers. He prosecutes the documents, and does not allow so many people. Then he closes with prayers. That's a sign of craving for public attention. And it's a disease that all politicians have. The difference between those who say they are in active politics and those who say they're in private life is that we have an ego trip, and he has a huge one, which needs constant massage by public appearances. So it will come to catch up with him. But now the fundamental issues of taxes, what I would have expected the president to do, and this is what I've insisted all the time, this human resource challenge that we are paying 35% of the money, collectible money from the taxes, goes to paying for workers, both of government and other institutions within the government, is something that I'm still questioning. We need to do serious human resource audit to make sure that we are paying people who exist. If you are a farmer like you and I, and you have 10 people in your farm that you are paying, you must count them. Let them be there. Who are these? What are they doing? Is it to the benefit of the company or the farm or the government, for that matter? So that you are dealing with physical people who are producing and they're assisting in terms of improving productivity in your farm or in your country. So that's one. The second issue that we need to do, as far as we are concerned, is how to take care of pilferage, because a lot of money that is collected does not end up in the kitty, or even if it gets to the kitty, it does not get to the desired goals and aspirations of the country. So we need to take care of that, such that the money that we are spending is the money that is going to real projects. The third issue, which is also important, is for the president to reduce expanding the tax bracket or increasing taxes. What he should do is to assist us in improving how to collect these taxes in a more friendly manner and in a way that is easy to access. Today, if you are to look into KRA and you want to pay certain fees that are required for many organizations, you are told the systems are down. And I'm told if you are to send your money when the systems are down, that is money that will disappear into oblivion. NTSA the same. Government offices, when you apply to be given certain services by government, which in turn you are supposed to pay some little fees, whether it's even a search for a parcel of land or certain revenues that is required in various ministries, it takes 1 week or 2 weeks. That money does not get to government in good time. And finally, what we should be asking ourselves is that what is the optimal use of resources? Which projects are critical? Which projects feed into the other? For example, if you are doing a town and you don't do serious infrastructure in terms of drainage and other facilities to serve the town, then you are creating a problem. What we need to do is that we create projects that feed into each other, such that if you are doing like housing now, the pet project of the president, like housing, we should be asking ourselves, this housing, how is it benefiting the ordinary people? How is it being made affordable? So those are the raft of issues that we need to do. But just increasing taxes is not an answer. Actually, Kenya now has become a hostage of IMF and World Bank. And the last time I knew, there is no country that has developed through World Bank and IMF projects.
And that is our next conversation. But even before we get there, to justify the new proposals enshrined in the Finance Bill of 2024, we've seen President Ruto come forth and say there's need for Kenya to be at par with its peers in Africa and Europe, case in point, France, who are paying 22% equivalent of their GDP in terms of taxes. So his commitment is that by the time he exits office in 2027, to take it from the current 14% to at least 20 or 22%. What do you make of this comparison and this ambitious target to get our tax being at least 20% or upwards of our GDP?
Well, Richard, good economists will tell you that when you are talking of GDP, it is an aggregate of certain activities, whether by industry, whether by individuals, whether by firms, whether by any other institutions, even learning institutions, or even service industry. It is an aggregate of all the effort within the country in that particular year. That's the basic definition of GDP to a layman like me, who is not an economist. But that aggregate, you must also identify certain segments of the economy. For example, the GDP that arises out of farming is fragile GDP. Fragile in the sense that it is rain dependent and it is also weather dependent, such that if the rain does not come in good amounts, that year the GDP will almost, from farming, will almost go down by 50%. But you see, when you are talking of GDP of France or even South Africa, much of it comes from the industry. And the industrial GDP is more stable. And even the GDP now coming from various individuals working in these industries is more stable because the salary is almost known and it takes care of inflation. So that if you are earning 50,000 this year, next year you will be earning 50,000 plus the component of inflation. So that is what brings stability. So in Africa, farming, even in Kenya today, farming, direct and indirect GDP that comes from farming goes all the way up to 50%. So if you are relying on a GDP that is relying on independent on rain-fed agriculture, such as in Kenya, either you don't know the economics that you are talking about, or you are totally oblivious of the suffering of people. Because you cannot be talking about that. Because in Chinua Achebe's book, he said, leaders doing this, they're either foolish, or they don't live in Nigeria, or they don't care. But because he said, because we see them in Nigeria, so they live in Nigeria. And because we know they are not foolish, they don't, therefore, we are left with one. They don't care. And I think this regime does not care about what happens to Kenyans.
Very well. Moving on swiftly, the Finance Bill of 2024 is coming at a time when the country is undergoing the 7th review of its $4.43 billion US dollars program with the IMF. And it begs the question, could this Finance Bill of 2024 be but a child of the IMF? And perhaps we are just singing to their tune in what they call restructuring agenda to help Kenya grow to be the Singapore of Africa.
Well, it's a product of miscarriage that the IMF and World Bank always visits in small countries like ours. I'm still challenging any economist to tell me which country has developed because of IMF and World Bank. Because as I've said before, World Bank and IMF, they come for grandiose projects that do not have social, economic, transformative agenda. And that is where we go wrong. Because you see, there must be some linkage with the ordinary people. The president himself talked about bottom-up, which is a brilliant pronouncement. But this bottom-up must also be informed by how do you lift those at the bottom, how do you allow those above them also to improve their capacity, so that as you move towards the top of the pyramid, each section is taken care of. Even those at the top of the pyramid, they must also be made to be prosperous, so that they spend whatever they are getting to deal with their issues of luxuries and self-actualization projects, such that if I'm buying a vehicle for 2 million, and you are already at the top of the pyramid yourself, you buy a vehicle of 20 million, and will not begrudge you buying a vehicle of 20 million, as long as that is something that you have earned from lawful economic activities.
Very well.
Yeah.
And now we are at a situation whereby the National Assembly has actually opened the window for members of the public to submit memoranda on the Finance Bill of 2024 before close of business on 28th of May this year. And it begs the question, there are those who believe that even this phase of submitting our views on the finance bill is oftentimes taken as a ceremonial undertaking, and little is taken into account from what the people feel. This time around, do you think the government seems to be awake enough to listen to the cry of the taxpayer?
No, it's going to the same business. You remember there was the same aspect last year. And I think 9,000 views and memoranda were presented to the committee. But at the end of the day, we know the committee never even reflected on some of those proposals. It's become ritualistic. You just allow them to do what they are doing, and at times they feel they are being delayed by this democratic principle that is enshrined in our constitution. Because public participation is an important way of people practicing democracy directly, as provided by Article 1 of the Constitution. But they seem to feel that the public is wasting their time, which begs the question, if you want to occupy this public space, you must accept all the nuances that you think you are getting from the public. So it is going to be ritualistic. I will not even present anything.
You want?
I won't. Why should I waste my time? I have my MP who should be able to take my views and present there. And these MPs, they listen to us. But I don't know, they get clocked up when they get into Parliament. Either they are serving the executive, or they are generally serving their own pockets. That's why I always get worried about the behavior of MPs.
Last year, towards the run-up of the Finance Act of 2023, we saw that case whereby the citizens, the electorate, felt betrayed by the political class who should have represented them and their views concerning that particular bill. Do you think this time members of parliament are likely to have a Damascus moment and at best push for the interest of the citizens, now that at least National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has asked MPs to save the public from the agony of crying about a bad financial bill?
Well, I hope they will have, but I hope they will have what you are calling Damascus moment. But remember, at the beginning of the term of the current regime, the Kenya Kwanza regime, majority of MPs were from Azimio, but they were bought one party after the other. And Parliament now has been emasculated. Parliament is now serving at the behest of the executive. And therefore, I do not trust that this Parliament will still have the moral authority to say anything or to stand up against the executive. Many of them, even those in Kenya Kwanza, they seem to be scared of the president in such a way that they look like they were not elected. It is like they came in through the degree of the president. It worries me, and I'm worried. And of course, at times we think of retiring from politics. But if this is the kind of team that we're going to have as MPs, we might rethink our position again. Because we cannot allow the country to go to the dogs just because one man has stolen the show and wants to be. How can he compare himself with France? He should be comparing ourselves with Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Africa, perhaps to a certain limited extent, Nigeria, Ghana, because we are sharing the same parameters of a fragile GDP coming from the ordinary people, the fishermen of this country, the farmers, and the livestock farmers who lost billions of shillings in the last 3 years when there was drought. That's the GDP that we are talking about, Richard.
Are you then taking concern with this over ambitiousness, or I should say ambitiousness in this particular matter of taxation as a way to development?
Well, I take it that the president is either impatient or he does not care. Because I think, as I've said before, he has won all the elections and he thinks he will win the next one. And perhaps he does not care whatever you do after he leaves office. So let's leave him, give him this space, either 3 years or 7 years. We just, is it 3? No. Yeah, 3 or 8 years.
Now that you are seeing outrage from even tax experts themselves, then it begs the question, do you take concern with the credibility, or I should say competency, of the President's Council of Economic Advisors? Because if they were doing the right thing, maybe we'll have seen a shallow outrage by this time on the Finance Bill of 2024.
I feel some of these guys are people who deal with theory. They don't deal with really issues of the economy. Because somebody who does not understand the toiling that farmers do in this country, the toiling that livestock farmers do, the toiling that fishermen and women do in this country, for us to be able to sustain this economy, those are guys who talk the things they are talking about. And they should be reminded that you cannot compare a fragile economy in Africa and industrial north. You are messing up because you are comparing apples with oranges, or with bananas, or with potatoes, or with nduma. Because you see, you must have a clear yardstick. What kind of economy? What is even if it is the same growth, that is not just a parameter that you can consider. You must segment the economy and understand when you are talking of so much in GDP, how have we arrived at that particular GDP?
Very well.
Yep.
Now that we've seen report from the taxman, that's Kenya Revenue Authority, come forth and portray how elusive their tax revenue targets remain to this end, and it begs the question, is it that when it comes to tax compliance, we are seeing low will from the citizens, or is it that they are taking concern with those who are going to be custodians of their taxes?
You know, the whole challenge is tax measures are supposed to be non-punitive, easy to pay, and also must be followed by trust. When you take my 10,000 shillings, where are you taking it? Those are the three things that conspire to deprive the taxman the revenue they desire. I told you systems are down, even City Hall, this county government hall, City Hall. You realize that when you want to apply for something, they tell you the systems are down. Send me M-Pesa, I will do it when the systems come up. And if you make a mistake, that money will not get to the City Hall. Somebody will organize and give you some kind of document that validates the condition, and yet the money did not get to City Hall. Why do systems break down? Why did we not digitize the registry fully? So that if I want to know that this title that we are sitting on, the land we are sitting on, I should just click the button and I know. The way you can click the button and you know what's the balance in your M-Pesa. Why isn't it working like that? Why is it that when you get Fuliza, it will tell you you have so much of Fuliza that you have taken, you still got a certain window of Fuliza. That should be the systems that we are dealing with in this regime. But because of corruption, no system will work.
No system will work because of corruption.
Yeah.
And lastly, let me ask you, now that we're seeing KRA still ambitious in meeting its revenue targets, annual revenue targets, would you advise them maybe to go hard on sealing every tax leak or tax loopholes instead of increasing more taxes or trying to widen the tax base and tax net?
In fact, they should be more friendly. When they realize that I owe them something, they come to me and be friendly. People, Kenyans, don't shy away from paying their taxes. When Kibaki took over the presidency in 2003, Kenyans overpaid, and people were wondering How shall we do free primary education? How are we going to expand the economy? How are we going to ensure that we reduce dependency on foreign donations? And how do we reduce interest rates in the bank? It is because people trusted that President Kibaki was not a Sakayo. He needed just the money to deal with the issues affecting our people. And he got the money until we were almost at 96% funded by local revenue collection. And we need to improve on that. We also improve on the county governments, so that county government should be collecting almost 10 times what the county councils were collecting in various jurisdictions on the 47 counties. Then we tighten our expenses. We make sure that we spend money on the most essential services. And finally, let us identify the ghost workers. Who are they?
You're very passionate about that call of identifying the ghost workers.
Yeah.
Has it ballooned into such a huge mess that if you don't curtail anytime soon, it's going to burst its ugly side?
It will burst, because you see, when you realize that there are two people earning through the same account, it tells you these are either two people who exist or two people manufactured by an officer, so that he gets money ostensibly going to pay people's salaries, unless they are couples. And I don't know how many counties have so many couples, so that you and your spouse say, okay, let us use the same account, joint account. Otherwise, ordinarily, I should be earning. And for the time my wife was working, and for the time I was an MP, we never had joint account. I get money, she gets money, then we agree this is a project. Who is funding this, myself or herself?
Very well.
Yeah. If there is no trust, even if you have joint account, some people will pilferage the account completely. You cannot create trust by bringing legislation. Trust is something that is inherent. You are either trustworthy or you are a con man, and a con man is akin to Sakayo.
In this case, the government of the day as a Sakayo.
Yeah, the government of the day is full of Sakayos.
Well, there you have it from Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former cabinet minister. We've been talking about the hits and misses in the finance bill of 2024. We've unpacked some of the key highlights in the bill and what they mean to you as a taxpayer. We wait to see how the entire conversation rolls out in the fullness of time. And for now, as an active citizen, you've been invited to submit your views on the bill. There are channels that are out there for you to do so. We invite you to be a more active citizen in that particular front. Until next time on Business Glide, it's always a pleasure to have you on board. Asante sana. Until next time on Business Glide, do enjoy the rest of your viewing.